In this video, I'll show you how to interact with objects inside the editor. So for starters, if you want to select an object, you need this icon here, select object, to be highlighted, and then just left click on any object to select it. The selected object will get this orange frame around it to notify you that you selected this object. If you need further visual notice aid for the selection of the objects, you can go to Tools, Preferences, and in the Viewports section under General you can click on Highlight Selected Geometry. So now when I select an object, you see that it gets this orange highlight around it. Now I'm just gonna turn it off. A shortcut for the Select tool, it's also for the 4 key on your keyboard. Now you see that the axis, the 3 axis on the object looks kind of strange. That's because it's following the local coordinate system. Here you can change it to View or to World. When you set it to World, any object selected follows the world coordinate system. So for example, as you can see now, the 3 axes responds to the world coordinate system, but if I switch back to local, you see that they change their position. Each coordinate system has its strengths, so it very much depends on the case. For now, I'm just gonna leave it at world. To move the object, you need this button Select and Move to be highlighted, or the shortcut for this one is 1 on your keyboard. Now, when you selected the object, you can very easily move it by clicking and holding on any of the 3 axes and moving around. Now, you see that right here on the upper toolbar you get these buttons corresponding for walking on different axes. So for example, if we want to move this object only along the x-axis, you need to highlight the x, and then you see that this arrow on the x-axis gets highlighted in yellow color. So you need to click only on the highlighted arrow, and if you click and drag the mouse, you see that you are able to move the object only along the x-axis. You cannot move it in any other. If you press Y, you see that the y-axis gets highlighted, and you just need to click on the highlighted arrow, and you'll see that you are constrained along the y-axis. But if you click on any other arrows and start moving, yes, you lose control over this constraint. So you need to click only on the highlighted. Yes, for example, here, this button XY, it highlights both of the X and Y arrows. So if you just click and drag here, you can move in both directions the prop, which is sometimes very useful. Okay, so for me to show you some other tricks for movement, we need to go on some other part of the level. Let me just get there. So one very nice trick is that if you want your objects to follow the terrain, you need to click this icon here, Follow Terrain. That means that when it's highlighted, you don't need to press with the cursor or on any of the 3 axes on the Move gizmo. You need to just click and hold anywhere inside the bounding box with the object. Click, and you can now drag the object, and you'll see that it will follow the terrain in the level. That can be really useful when you start placing props in your level. Saves a lot of time instead of manually moving it in the z-axis to align it on some hills or something like that. The next button, it's very similar. It does the exactly same thing, only now this object will snap next to the other brushes. That could also be very helpful. Now, something very important, if you need to place your props on a very specific distances from each other, you can use this snap to grid button. Now when you click it, you see this black grid that appears around the prop, and from this that means that when I start moving the prop, it will move and snaps to every square on the black grid. This is really useful if you're making an architectural type of level with interiors or some square shapes and forms. If you really need exact distances to snap objects to the walls, stuff like that. So you can change the size of the square of the grid by clicking on this little arrow here. And now you can see that the current setting is 4 meters. That means that this prop will move only by 4 meters in every direction. If you need, for example, to move it only by 1 meter, you just click on the little arrow and click on 1. Again, as I mentioned in the previous video, CryEngine works with the metric system. So now you see that it moves by 1 meter at a time. Now, something other, if you want to move very quickly your object, for example, if you need to get this rock and you want to move it all the way here, you don't need to manually drag it with the move gizmo. You only need to go to the place where you want this prop to be, for example here, and then you press this combination, Control, Shift and left click, and that will instantly move this rock prop from the other side of the level here in front of you. This is really helpful. So again, if I want to move this rock here, I don't need to select it and drag it. All I need to do is point to the place I want it to appear, and then press Ctrl, Shift and left click. This will really speed up the process of moving objects in the level, and it's really useful. Other nice trick, if you want the camera in the viewport to zoom on any prop in the level, you don't need to go all the way there. I mean, of course you can increase the game speed, but what easier way is just to select the prop. As you see, I selected this little rock prop in the distance, and you need to press Z. The Z key will center the camera on the selected prop no matter how far it is. Again, I select this prop, press Z, and the camera centers on this prop. Other very useful tool in the CryEngine is the ruler tool. So if you need to know exactly what distance is from this point to the other one, you can just select this tool. You see this white sphere appears. Just click once with left mouse button, and then click again where you want it to end. And when you click there, you see this straight line and this text that shows you that the distance is 300 meters almost. This is really useful to determine the distances in your level between separate props or level areas. To make this tool disappear, just click again on the ruler tool so it doesn't get highlighted. So now let's continue with the rotate tool. When you click on any prop, the shortcut for the rotate tool is 2 on the keyboard. When you press 2 or just highlight this button here, you can freely rotate any object along its 3 axes. For example, here on the Z-axis, you see that, yeah, I just activated the snap tool. I'll explain a bit about it later, but for now you can see that you can rotate around the object pivot on each of the 3 axes. To do that, just wait until any of them gets highlighted and then just press and hold the mouse button and start dragging up and down. Now again, as in the Move tool, as you saw previously, we have this snap angle. When it's activated, you see that here you can specify the angle at which you want the object to be snapped when you rotate it. So now I set it at 30 degrees, and when I rotate the prop, you see that it rotates at 30 degrees every time. This is really helpful. For example, if you want to rotate your object at 45 degrees or 90, just select 90, and then you see that when you rotate the object, it will snap it. It will snap it on 90 degrees every time. Yeah, this is really helpful if you have to do exact positioning of objects in buildings or something like that. For organic environment, it's not really necessary, but yeah, it's good to know these things. So I'm gonna deselect this snap angle. Again, as you can see, you can rotate in local or world coordinate system. It depends what exactly you want for the current scene. So let's move on to Scale tool. The shortcut for this one it's free on the keyboard, or you just highlight the Select and Scale icon, and then you just click in the center of the gizmo, and then just while holding the left mouse button, you just drag upward to size the prop up or down to scale it down. Now the Scale tool is one of the most important tools that you're gonna be using in the CryEngine editor, and that's because you can create a large variety of props by just using 2 or 3 props and using the Scale tool. For example, all these different looking rock formations are the same rock. Only 2 rock props that I just rotated, scaled, and used to create different looking type of environment. So yes, try to use the Scale tool whenever possible, because that will save you. You don't need to do 15 variations of rock with different sizes inside 3ds Max. You can just, with a good planning, you can just scale the same prop and just rotate it around. To duplicate a prop, and this is important, to duplicate a prop, just press on the keyboard Ctrl and C. When you press Ctrl C and start moving the mouse, you'll see that a copy of this object appears, but you need to click again with the left button to actually place it in the level. Yeah, so again, if you want to duplicate this prop, you just select it and press Ctrl C, move it anywhere where you want, and then just press left mouse again. If you press right mouse button, or yeah, so as you see, it works very easily inside the editor to clone objects and to rotate and scale them. So anything else important left for these gizmos? I don't think so. I think that I showed you everything that you know to be able to place objects in your scene and manipulate them. So in the next lesson we're going to take a look at the roller up bar, and I'll explain a bit about the brush tabs, then the vegetation tab, the terrain, and the layer system, which is pretty important. So yes, that's for now, and see you in the next lesson.